So I want you to imagine you're standing in the dust outside the Della Union Saloon.
Okay, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. The sun is in your eyes. Maybe a dog barks somewhere down the street, and the guy standing 20 paces away suddenly twitches.
Oh, man. The classic Western standoff.
Exactly. And in a real gunfight, those next 10 seconds are just pure, unpredictable chaos. I mean, it is a blur of adrenaline, smoke, and honestly, just pure luck.
Which is terrifying if you're actually in it.
Terrifying, yeah.
Yeah.
But in 1975, two game designers looked at all that cinematic chaos and decided, you know what? We could capture this entirely with math.
Which is such a wild concept.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are super thrilled you are joining us because today we are looking at an absolute artifact of early tabletop game design. We are exploring how you go about quantifying a myth.
Yeah, and the source material we are unpacking today is a really remarkable rulebook called Boot Hill. Specifically, it's Boot Hill, Rules for Wild West Gunfights and Campaigns. It was authored by Blume and Gary Gygax and published by Tactical Studies Rules, or TSR, as most people know them. And it's just fascinating to look at the physical document itself. You know, the price printed right on the cover is just $5.
$5 for a complete mathematical simulation of the Old West? I mean, you can't even get a cup of coffee for that now.
No, definitely not.
And the book itself is just dripping with character. It's packed with these amazing, slightly gritty, hand-drawn illustrations. Like, there's a sketch of a cowboy performing what the caption calls a road agent spin to get the drop on Wild Bill Hickok.
Oh, that's such a great illustration.
Yeah, and there's another drawing setting the scene right outside that Della Union Saloon I mentioned earlier, where a sign proudly advertises beer for 5 cents. It establishes this incredibly specific dime novel mood before you even read a single rule.
It really does create a distinct atmosphere. But our mission today isn't just to look at an old game for nostalgia's sake. The goal is to understand how Blume and Gygax actually attempted to simulate the wildly unpredictable nature of a shootout using nothing but percentile dice. And I have to say, some of the most hyper-specific mathematical charts you will ever see in your life.
Oh, the charts are legendary. But to even step into that saloon, you first need to understand this massive paradigm shift that was happening in tabletop gaming at the time.
Right, the shift in scale.
Exactly. The authors actually call this out right in the foreword of the rulebook. They note that Boot Hill operates on what they call an unusual plane for wargaming. Because up until this point in the 1970s, if you were playing a war game, you were usually commanding these massive hordes of troops.
You were playing a general.
Right. You were a general moving faceless battalions of Romans or like a Napoleon's infantry across this massive field.
And Boot Hill changes that ratio entirely. It moves to a strict 1-to-1 scale. So one physical figure on the table equals one single character in the game world.
Which changes everything.
It does. And the scale of the environment is incredibly exact, too. Like 1 inch on the tabletop equals exactly 6 feet in the game. You are no longer managing an army, you know. You are managing a single, highly detailed individual.
And there's this brilliant little aside in the rules here regarding those figures, which I just have to mention.
Oh, the plastic versus metal debate.
Yes. They specify you should use 25 millimeter or 30 millimeter miniatures, and then they throw some wonderful 1975 shade by stating that metal figures are preferable because the plastic ones, like the Airfix models, quote, don't hold their paint jobs.
It's a very practical warning for the hobbyist of the era, honestly.
True.
But zooming in on that 1-to-1 scale,
Mm-hmm.
it fundamentally changes the psychological landscape of the game. I mean, think about it. When you lose a battalion in a traditional war game, it's a tactical setback.
Yeah, it's just numbers on a board.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you are controlling one single gunslinger and they catch a bullet, the jeopardy is entirely personal. It forces a level of attachment that requires a very different approach to character creation.
Okay, let's unpack this character creation because it is like taking a high-stakes Wild West HR personality test.
That's the best way to describe it.
Right, because before you even draw a weapon, you have to roll percentile dice, so 0, 1 to 100, to determine these highly specific personal traits. You aren't just assigning arbitrary points to build some superhero.
No, the dice decide for you.
Yeah, you roll on a chart, and your physical strength can range from literally feeble all the way up to mighty.
And it goes far beyond just physical attributes, too. The system actually attempts to quantify your character's psychology.
That is the part that completely blows my mind. Your personal bravery is literally on a percentage scale. You could roll poorly and be mathematically classified as a coward. Or you could roll incredibly well and be fearless or even foolhardy. I mean, imagine showing up to a tabletop game ready to play this tough-as-nails outlaw, and the math tells you, no, you are actually a coward who will likely run from a fight.
It dictates your entire strategy from minute one. You can't just play every character as a fearless gunslinger if the dice say otherwise.
You'd have to completely role-play the coward angle.
Right. And the rules even suggest that each player should develop a personal character with a name and a distinct role in the town. It allows past events to reflect in successive games. You are essentially generating a narrative through statistics.
And that narrative is dynamic, right? Your character can actually change and grow, provided you survive.
Survival is the key metric here. The rules state that if you win actual face-to-face showdowns, your stats increase. But they are very specific to note that this does not include backshooting or dry gulching.
So you can't just snipe people from a rooftop to level up. It has to be a fair fight.
Precisely. If you stand your ground in a fair fight and win, your speed and your bravery percentages actually go up based on a strict mathematical formula.
That's so cool.
You are literally building a reputation and gaining experience through survival.
Okay, so you've discovered you're mathematically a coward, you've managed to avoid getting dry gulched, and you find yourself in a standoff in the street. How does the system actually handle the most iconic Western trope of all the split-second quick draw?
This is where the mechanics get really interesting.
Because I have a bone to pick with this. The rules state that one turn in the game represents about 10 seconds of real time. I have to push back on that design choice.
Go for it.
If we are talking about a split-second draw, 10 seconds feels like an absolute eternity. You could draw, fire, reload, check your pocket watch, and dive behind a water trough in 10 seconds.
It's a very astute observation, and
Yeah.
it's actually something the authors explicitly address in the text.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they admit that this is a distortion of reality. They fully acknowledge that 10 seconds is far too long for a realistic gunfight or a brawl, which would logically be over in a fraction of that time.
So wait, why intentionally build a distortion into a game that is so obsessed with simulation?
Because they found that changing it ruined the gameplay.
Ah, okay.
It is a classic, fundamental game design compromise. If you try to track actions second by second, the paperwork becomes insurmountable and the game just grinds to a halt.
That makes sense. Nobody wants to do taxes at the gaming table.
Exactly. You have to bend the simulation slightly to ensure the tabletop experience remains playable. However, to ensure they still capture the razor-thin margins of who draws first within that abstract 10-second window, they rely on a rigorous first shot chart.
And it is entirely math-based. The order of who shoots first isn't just a random roll of the dice to see who gets lucky.
No, not at all.
It's determined by adding and subtracting modifiers based on a massive multitude of factors. So first, you have your character's innate speed, which you rolled during that HR personality test earlier.
Right.
If you rolled high enough, you might have a speed classified as greased lightning. That gives you a huge mathematical advantage.
But the innate reflexes of the person pulling the trigger are only part of the equation here. The physical tool itself is factored in through weapon speed.
Yeah, so a little Derringer pistol hidden in a vest pocket is incredibly fast to draw and fire.
Super fast.
But if you are lugging around a heavy Civil War-era rifle and you haven't aimed it yet, the chart classifies that as a very slow weapon. It drastically penalizes your initiative.
Which brings us to the context of the fight. The game handles situational awareness with incredible granularity through what it calls the surprise factor.
This might be my favorite detail in the entire rulebook, because the math actually knows the difference between different levels of being startled.
It really does.
If you are, say, having a drink at the bar or playing a hand of poker and someone unexpectedly tells you to draw, you are classified as surprised. That incurs a -5 penalty to your first shot score.
Because the baseline tension of a saloon implies you're at least somewhat on guard.
Exactly. You're in a saloon, you're a little tense anyway. But if you are just out for a quiet stroll on the sidewalk, not expecting trouble at all, and someone steps from an alley and tells you to go for your gun, you are completely surprised.
And that's a bigger penalty.
That is a -10 penalty. The math knows the difference between a tense environment and a peaceful one.
And all of these modifiers stack together. Your personal speed, the weapon's physical speed, the surprise factor, whether you are running or sitting on a horse, it all tallies up into one final number. The player with the highest positive total fires first.
But getting the gun out first is great. Pulling the trigger is where this engine really starts to hum.
Oh, absolutely.
Because drawing first is only half the battle. When the bullets actually start flying, this game reveals a surprisingly gritty, realistic physics engine made purely of paper and charts.
Gritty is the perfect word for it.
The base chance to hit your target is just a coin flip, 50%. But from there, it is modified by absolutely everything imaginable.
It factors in the range to the target, your individual accuracy stat, your bravery, and your personal experience.
Wait, experience as in...
Meaning the exact number of gunfights you've previously survived.
Wow.
Yeah. But the situational deductions are where the system demands a lot from the player.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because by layering all these complex mathematical deductions, the designers are actually simulating the cognitive overload and panic of a real gunfight.
That's a great way to look at it.
The math is intentionally overwhelming. If you are firing while running and dodging, that's a massive -30 to your percentage chance.
So good luck hitting anything.
Right. And if you decide you want to look like a dime novel hero and fire 2 pistols at once, you actually take a -10 penalty for each gun.
And if you are injured or forced into a position where you have to shoot with your offhand, your wrong hand, that incurs another -10.
It creates this intense feeling of desperate friction. And if you actually manage to overcome all that math and hit your target, you don't just subtract abstract health points like in a modern video game.
No abstract health bars here.
You roll percentile dice again on the exact hit location chart to see precisely where the bullet went.
And this is where the cascading consequences of the mechanics truly shine. A single bullet doesn't just lower a number on a page. It fundamentally alters the tactical reality of the game board.
Yeah. If you take a light wound to the leg, the rules state your movement speed is immediately halved for the rest of the fight.
You're literally limping.
Exactly. If you take a serious wound to your gun arm, you take a massive penalty to your speed and accuracy, and you are forced to fire with your offhand for the remainder of the game, which, as we just learned, triggers that -10 penalty.
The injuries directly impact what you are physically capable of doing on your next turn. It enforces the narrative through mechanics.
Absolutely does.
You have to adapt your strategy in real time, limping to cover or desperately trying to aim with your non-dominant hand, just as a real person would if they were suddenly injured. It's an unwavering dedication to cause and effect.
And that gritty dedication doesn't stop at gunfights. The rules dedicate an entire section to the brawling chart for when things inevitably devolve into a saloon fight.
Oh, the brawling mechanics offer a completely different tactical puzzle. It dictates who gets the first blow and gives them the option to throw 2 punches or attempt to grapple their opponent.
The grappling table is brutal. You roll to see exactly what kind of hold you get. Your opponent can gouge you, knee you, kick you, or trap you in a bear hug.
And the bear hug is fascinating.
Yes. Because a bear hug isn't just a status effect. It actually subtracts from your strength stat every single round until you pass out. It adds this incredible ticking clock tension to a fist fight.
Furthermore, they factor in environmental weapons, which is crucial for recreating that cinematic feel of a saloon brawl.
I have to say, there is an incredible elegance to how they handle hitting someone with a piece of furniture.
It's so specific.
If you use a standard striking weapon, like a club or a heavy bottle, it causes an extra point of damage, but you subtract 1 from your die roll to hit because it's slightly awkward to swing.
Right.
But if you pick up a larger striking weapon, like a chair, it adds +2 to your damage, but gives you a -2 penalty to your die roll because it's so unwieldy. They perfectly balance the physics of hitting a guy with a chair.
Every aggressive action has an equal and opposite mechanical reaction. It requires the player to constantly weigh risk versus reward.
Which brings up a very real question for me. We're tracking offhand shooting penalties, the weight of saloon chairs, and the exact location of leg wounds.
That's a lot of math.
It's a ton of math. And if the basic rules are this granular, Blume and Gygax also included a whole section of advanced rules to escalate the game even further.
They did.
At a certain point, does this actually make for a fun game? Because, honestly, it sounds more like doing trigonometry homework than playing a cowboy.
It's a very valid criticism, especially for a modern audience used to streamlined games. But you have to remember the audience of 1975.
Okay, fair.
The war gamers of that era were looking for hyper-realism. They wanted a simulation that accounted for every variable, even if it meant heavier paperwork. And the advanced rules are where the game transitions from a simple street duel to full-blown cinematic chaos.
The biggest shift seems to be how players move around the board. Because in the basic game, players take turns moving. But in the advanced game, they introduce simultaneous movement.
That completely changes the dynamic.
Yeah, players have to actually write down their characters' orders for the turn, the direction, speed, exactly where they are running, and keep it secret. Then everyone reveals their orders, and all the figures move at the exact same time.
It creates a literal fog of war. You have to predict human behavior, anticipating where your opponent will run before they actually do it.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
Oh, it is. And because everyone is moving simultaneously, you now have to calculate firing at moving targets in real time. If you stand still and fire at someone who is running, you have to calculate the shot at the exact midpoint of their run.
Wait, really? So if your opponent wrote an order for their character to run 12 inches across the street, you have to resolve your gunshot exactly when their miniature reaches the 6-inch mark.
Yes, it requires a spatial awareness that completely changes the tactical landscape of the tabletop.
And they add in all these wild environmental variables to that spatial math, too. There are rules for what they call arched arrows, representing Native American combat tactics.
Right.
If someone is hiding behind a wall or a rock where a flat trajectory gun can't hit them, an arrow can be shot in an arc over the cover. The rules give a flat 15% chance that the arrow bypasses the cover entirely, and then you have to re-roll to see if it actually hits the person hiding.
They also introduce vehicle speeds, which adds a completely new kinetic element to the board.
The speeds are terrifying when you map them to that 1-inch scale.
They are so fast.
A buckboard wagon moves 24 inches at a gallop. But a train blasts across the tabletop at 42 inches per turn. Imagine the physical table space that takes up.
You'd need a massive table.
You really would. You can just picture players sweating over written simultaneous movement orders, trying to calculate how to jump onto a train moving 42 inches a turn while factoring in midpoint gunshots and arched arrows.
When you combine all of these elements, the complex deductions, the lethal hit locations, the simultaneous movement, it perfectly contextualizes a quote from Gary Gygax found in the foreword.
Oh, the Eastwood quote.
Yeah, he states that Clint Eastwood westerns are actually, quote, mild compared to a typical Boot Hill game.
He wasn't kidding. The simulation is so lethal that even the creator of the game wasn't immune to it.
Not at all. He openly admits in the text that he has personally lost recreations of the gunfight at the OK Corral at least 4 different ways.
That's hilarious.
And he notes that despite growing up watching cowboy matinees, he frequently bit the dust playing as a member of the Dalton gang in their Battle of Coffeeville scenario.
Which brings us to one of the most brilliant psychological rules hidden in the advanced section, the minor character morale rule. It's a perfect example of weaving mythology right into the mechanics.
I completely agree. In the game, you control your primary character, who will execute whatever written orders you give them no matter how dangerous. But you might also be commanding minor characters, random deputies, town clerks, or saloon patrons.
The NPCs, basically.
Right. The rules dictate that these minor NPCs will not blindly walk into their own slaughter. They will literally flinch or run away rather than face a legendary historical figure.
It turns famous gunslingers into an area effect weapon just by existing. If your random town clerk suddenly finds himself staring down Wyatt Earp or Wild Bill Hickok, the game mechanics force that NPC to panic.
You just lose control of them.
Yeah, you lose control because they are too terrified of the legend standing across the street. It quantifies fear and reputation perfectly, forcing the player to deal with the psychological weight of the Wild West, not just the physical bullets.
It is a superb piece of design that really bridges the gap between historical wargaming and narrative role-playing.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? We've just spent this deep dive unpacking how a $5 rulebook from 1975 managed to map the chaos of the Wild West.
It's an incredible achievement.
It is. Authored by the same minds who designed strict World War II and Martian war games, they took the mythology of dime novels and Hollywood westerns, the quick draws, the saloon brawls, the train robberies, and successfully quantified it into a playable, highly lethal tabletop experience. They looked at a cloud of gun smoke and turned it into math.
But before we go, there's one final fascinating anomaly from the source material that we have to share with you.
Oh, I love this part.
It's a single detail that kind of breaks that perfect, gritty simulation we've been analyzing this whole time.
Because we've talked extensively about how fragile human characters are in this system. You take a bullet to the leg, your speed is halved, you get caught in a bear hug, you lose your strength points until you pass out.
The hit location charts are merciless.
So merciless. And human players are incredibly susceptible to mortal wounds.
Humans are fragile, but the horses are not.
It's true. The rules explicitly state that when you are checking the extent of a wound on a horse, the horse receives a massive -20 deduction on the dice roll.
Meaning a hit that would instantly cripple or kill a human player has to roll exceptionally, almost impossibly high to be fatal to a horse.
They are mechanically, mathematically incredibly difficult to which leaves you with a fascinating anomaly to mull over.
It really does.
In a game that is so strictly obsessed with gritty, lethal realism for its human players, where your arm can be shattered and you bleed out in the dust based on a percentile roll, does this mechanical invulnerability for horses reveal a hidden romantic bias of the Old West?
It certainly suggests a hierarchy of mythology. The designers were willing to simulate the brutal reality of human violence, but they drew a mathematical line at the cowboy's horse.
It paints a picture of a world where the cowboy might die in a flash of bad math and lead, but his trusty steed. His steed is almost mythically immortal. It turns out, even when you build the perfect predictable physics engine to capture the chaos of reality, you still leave a little room for the legend to ride on.